Well, I want to put this out as to counter some of the information coming out of the YouTube major media, and we'll call it that. Trump's policies are correct, and rhetoric about China are correct. Now, this guy Jack Ma, he's a Chinese billionaire worth so many tens of billions of dollars. He made a comment about Trump and, well, let's say about the U.S. policies towards China and how they originated. He says the original thing was to export jobs to China and have the Chinese do the jobs that don't require as much maybe skilled labor or intellectual thought into engineering and design, and that engineering, design, and creativity would be here left in the domain of the United States. He says that was the original plan. Well, I'm going to tell you that was not the original plan, even though that was said it was the original plan, because I want to go back to a phrase that J.P. Morgan once said, the famous financier and banker from the turn of the century who died, I think, in the 1920s. He once said that a man has two reasons for doing everything: a good reason and the real reason. The real reason why they were exporting industry to China was to simply deindustrialize the United States, to bring about countries on a level playing field, to bring about a global system of serfdom for controlled by the billionaires, and the peasants get crumbs. That's really what the deal was about. Not good for everybody, every which way around. Now, this guy was talking about jobs for like middle class America in the Midwest and shit. He's lying through his teeth. He's got a very good English delivery, but the problem is he is scamming. And you know what? I'm going to tell you, honestly, every billionaire out there is a good scamster. And Trump is a scamster, but he is actually, at the core of him, he's not a fake. I was thinking he was a fake in the beginning because I've never seen anybody anywhere near his wealth that wasn't a fake. Okay? But I realized the guy actually does have a very patriotic streak to him. So, now, what's going on with YouTube, and a lot of people are, some of the content creators are first off bitching about, they're getting less views and stuff, but YouTube probably is growing overall. What's going on is, I think, well, let me say this. This is something they put on my thing for recommended. The Young Turks. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The Late Show, no way in hell. Communist Network News, no way in hell. Dave Pacman Show, Vox, Politics Video Channel, yeah, right. All mainstream lies and BS. Now, this kid, I'm 60 something years old, right? So, like, I've been around a while, but I've been aware of, all the conspiracy theories that are pretty, well, they're not theories, they're conspiracy facts. And, cloak and dagger politics and business strategies that go on behind the scenes, that maybe, and the true real history of what happened in the world and the United States, and how we've gotten led to situations that have crushed the middle class with depressions and wars. I know the stories, the real reasons for them, and way before the internet was around. But I'm a unique individual because well, I've always quite well, I guess maybe from high school, where I was taught by former University of Fordham professor in history, kind of woke me up to a lot of different things about, Abe Lincoln, Pearl Harbor, whereby Pearl Harbor the Japanese were goaded to attack, and what actually FDR did with leaving the fleet helpless in you know, in Hawaii, in Pearl Harbor, so that there would be a reason to get the public behind getting involved in a war. Because the Gallup poll, about, I think it was August of 1941, Pearl Harbor was December 7th, 1941. The Gallup poll, just 4 months prior to that, said 83% of Americans did not want to get involved in another world war, which was going on for a couple years, because Germany attacked Poland, which was a joint venture with Russia and all that, and the Japanese were taking over most of the Southeast Asia, right? Americans still didn't want to get into war because they had to be attacked first. But, that type of stuff, I actually knew way before, many years before Senator Guy Gillette put out his book None Dare Call It Infamy in 1984. I knew about this in the early 1970s. I knew about this in 1971. So I've been privy to a lot of the inside stories about what the income tax was about, what World War I was about, what the war between the states was about, many, many, many years, actually decades before the internet was around. So sometimes people think I don't know something. You do your research. I'm like, I've probably been probably light years ahead of you before the person was born that's trying to tell me I'm stupid. But I do realize what's going on here because, the problem is going to be it's going to be very tough. I don't know how this is going to work out because I'm trying to bolster my views with certain little things because I noticed I took a major hit in views just about a week ago, and I don't know what the reason is, but I think the reason is actually there's been shit going on since August of 2016. But I looked around and I said, well, actually, I don't want to really. Either I want to make a certain amount of money on this, or I want to make a shitload of money, and I don't think I can make a shitload of money. But the deal is, there's like there's like an in between area where I don't want to go into a certain tax bracket. So that's also, my rationale for not pushing this that hard. But I can actually make up for my views probably pretty quickly because I haven't pulled out all the other shit that I can do. I kind of left that in reserve because I was kind of figuring I wanted a certain amount to keep me in a certain tax bracket. That's really what my modus operandi is. So I'm not really worried about it. But the deal is, what they're doing is everybody on YouTube is the big money that goes into YouTube for advertising is coming from the corporate elite. The highest paying amounts of revenue streams, or whatever you want to call them, are coming from the big corporate elite. You know what the big corporate elite push for politically? Of course, Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton, but they're also pushing for this globalist agenda, with keeping jobs exported away from the United States and breaking in the United States and deindustrializing the United States. But that's not necessarily saying that it's even going to go to the Chinese middle class. The Chinese middle class might go up somewhat, but the game plan is always going to be the feudal lords are going to be controlling the situation. This guy is saying, he's criticizing Donald Trump, and he's saying that, it's been the U.S. policy all along to export jobs to China to create a higher standard of living for the United States, which actually is artificial because that's only going to last as long as the dollar is worth the same amount in relative to the Chinese money. That situation is going to continue, and that's not going to continue forever due to the not just the trade balance but the government debt. That's not going to continue that way, where the dollar is going to stay relatively strong. Now, actually, I would urge people to buy maybe some Chinese durable goods that can last you many, many years, that are not superfluous fluff. Because in the future, those goods might be several times higher when the exchange rate, I think, is going to change. It's not going to be a matter of Donald Trump changing it. It's going to be a matter of the laws of economics. This situation's not going to continue. But this guy's a BS artist. This guy, Mr. Ma, whatever the hell his name is. He knows it too. He knows it. He knows that the real rationale for freaking bringing industries into China was to deindustrialize the West, and the reason they were deindustrialize the West is to make a global even playing field across the board, not to enrich the middle class across the board, but to make a feudal system. That's all it is. Now, unfortunately, the videos that are saying the exact opposite of what I'm saying and are pushing the party line are being pushed heavily, and it's not necessarily. Well, I guess it's ever since YouTube got gobbled up by Google, but it's not that simple. It's like I said, YouTube's money is coming mainly from the largest corporations and the elitists themselves. So They are also pushing. I don't know how they'd be doing it exactly, but I almost would think, like, say for instance, a video comes out on CNN, and to get a million hits, so they're going to have that video recommended a lot more. And if I put a video out and I get 300 hits, it's like it's going to be pushed down way, 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 way further in the search engine. And it might not have had been that way where viewership, views, and subscribership was a primary factor in getting a video around. It might have been AdWords, or might have been top subject topic, or I know, like, there's various things that make a video get around. There's various algorithms, but the way they change it probably is to keep the established big channels pushing more and more, and anybody who's an upstart has a tougher time. Now, that's actually the strategy of the monopolistic capitalists. That's why, unrelated to, say, YouTube, like I'm not saying it's YouTube, but it's like the strategy of the elite. What it is like, say, for instance, monopolistic capitalists love regulation. In other words, a small company that tries to open up a business and hire 2 employees, they're going to have to put up with all the regulations that the big companies do, but it's much worse because they have to, do forms for, like, RT6, the reemployment tax to the state, the federal reemployment tax, the state, what do you call it? The I-9s, the W-9s, the 1099s. Whether if they have to figure out for Schedule C, Schedule D's, the handicap parking. Maybe they have to have bathroom issues or something because they came up with a new law with safety, possibly with transgender, fire regulations. So in other words, all the regulations that are easier to handle by big corporations actually stifle small businesses, and that's kind of like works. It's an analogy to what's going on in YouTube in a way, because established people will be able to get out disinformation very easily and put the party line out there. And of course, there's always the human example of people will follow. Like, if you look at a psychological experiment, they played it on a guy in an office, right? And it was like they're sitting in a waiting room. One guy one or two people was like the people that initiated this. One would stand up when they heard a bell, and they would stand up for 30 seconds or 10 seconds, and then they would sit down. And then another person who was also a person in there that was part of the scheme would do the same thing. They had 2 or 3, but then other people would follow. People always follow the lead. They always want to be part of the group. They always don't want to be ostracized and branded as somebody different, because then you're a target. That is exactly even how it works with information. That's why they're pushing these channels that are, establishment. They're actually the hidden hand of the corporations behind them. Now, I'm actually dropping you a lot more dimes than probably you'll even hear from other people, even though I'm not giving you a freaking glossy production here. But I understand the modus operandi of many things, and I've worked for people, genuine people that you can be considered elitist. This guy's full of shit. I can tell you that right now, and I can read him like a freaking book, man. But I mean, Trump's full of shit in a good way, because he's trying to scam the scammers. But I think he does have very much a patriotic streak, and he is out for the middle class. They are looking to crucify this guy, and the more the freaking major media attacks him, the more I realize he's genuine 100%. Now, I was not a person that believed that in the beginning, because I figured he's a bullshit artist like all the rest of the freaking billionaires out there. Now, every single billionaire out there is not this evil monolithic jackass, but I can tell you, they did not get there in their situation by sharing their wealth. That's why they always play the game, and they have that public image of being a philanthropist. It's a scam. That's all it is. And actually, that's a way to hide their money from taxation, because philanthropy and charitable organizations are a good way to hide your assets. And you can run a lot of crap through there. Just which it's amazing how the Clinton Foundation gets away with it, man. I'm like, I mean, you know, that tells you the government is absolutely corrupt beyond belief because everybody in the world knows that it's nothing but a freaking money laundering scheme to freaking bribe the State Department when Hillary was in the State Department. But you're not going to hear none of this kind of crap coming out of these other channels. Now, the Young Turks, I can't stand. That guy on there, you know, he's like a pseudo liberal. I think he's like a liberal. Like, I don't even want to use that word. Liberal is to me is like actually the word. I'm a liberal in a true sense. I'm not socialist, communist. I am like, you know, hey, do what the hell you want. I'm not going to play like, you know, oh, religious right wing. I'm going to make you religious. You know, if you want to do whatever screwed up thing you want to do, if you're not hurting nobody else, I don't give a damn. You know, that's really what it comes down to. I'm pretty much, it's not like I'm trying to enforce morality like a right winger. And not saying that you shouldn't be moral, but I'm saying is I don't think the government should get around freaking trying to enforce morality. But this guy, Young Turks, man, he's a deadpan idiot. I don't like this guy. Now, somebody who's like pretty liberal, but sometimes he comes out with some pretty good stuff is Jon Stewart. I'm not like a total fan of him or anything like that. I don't watch his crap, but he's a hell of a lot brighter than the guy that runs the Young Turks. CNN is freaking Communist Network News, and I don't know what these other channels are. I'm not going to freaking look at them. Actually, most of the time, I only look at people that are like really small on YouTube. I don't really bother with any of the big channels pretty much at all. I used to even like look at Jay Leno more but I don't even bother with him. I'm thinking, dude, you got so much money coming out of your ears, you don't even know what car you're going to buy next. So even though I have an interest in cars, I don't give a rat's ass about him either. So, but that's where I'm coming from. Hopefully I gave you some words of wisdom. I kind of glossed over a couple points because I have very good insight on what's going on. And this video might not get around. That's the thing. But I'm going to try to work on getting some word out there. But, you know, I actually am a fairly shrewd individual. And I could probably, you know, because I realized that I wasn't really doing this so much for political purposes. It was more like health purposes, kind of help people out. And I did some political videos, but now I'm realizing since they're hammering the crap out of the ones that are the alternative political thing, and actually some of this crap is coming from mainstream alternative quote-unquote YouTube channels, which are disinformation in themselves. And you'll say, well, try to prove that to me. Well, you know what? I'm not going to try to prove it to me. If you got a freaking head, your head's not up your ass, maybe you'll figure it out. But, you know, I'm not going to take any shit from nobody on this channel either, too, because I you know, that's another thing. Because I really, you know, when people call me dumb, I'm like, you better freaking watch out, because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm probably far more on the ball than you imagine. Just because you freaking read some shit on somebody's blog someplace doesn't mean I didn't know about it probably before you were born. And as far as you know, where they're trying to move with this, you know, this Donald Trump victory was an upset, but it's not it's an upset temporarily, and the only reason it was an upset was because Hillary Clinton became so much of a liability and too much of a problem, and she was stupid too, even the way she handled everything, and she had such a deadpan personality that they decided to drop her at the last minute. Even though I think the popular vote probably was 30% in favor of Donald Trump as a net gain overall, when you're looking at, if you really want to look at the statistical samples of, you know, they'll tell you the polls say this, the polls say that. If you really want to look at a much better statistical sample of what the population really thinks, and like, in other words, a better confidence coefficient and a tighter standard deviation, look at the rallies. The rallies for Trump were immensely, exponentially larger than Hillary Clinton's rallies. I mean, there was even green screen rallies they faked out, which was pointed out by some YouTubers that were independent that I didn't pick up on, but they pointed out, and they showed there was a green screen put in the back to make our rally look much larger. And when you looked at the cell phone picture of the same rally, you could see there was not even half the people there. So the rallies for Trump usually were hundreds of times larger than Hillary Clinton, which tells me 30 percentage points in reality in favor of Trump during the election was probably, you know, a conservative estimate. But what they're trying to do right now is attack him from every which way. But once they get they paint a picture where the majority seems to be against Trump, even if it's not that way, people will follow. People follow the leader. Just like I gave you that psychology example where they had a person stand up in a waiting room every time a bell went off, then they had another person do it, and then another person do it, like they were the three that get them started. And then the fourth person was not part of that little scam. They would follow. And before you know it, everybody in the room was standing up when the bell rang. It's kind of like Pavlov's dog's experiment, but a little bit different. That's exactly how the media works. That's why they want to control it. Now, this has been a problem not just on the internet. This was a problem actually after World War I. World War I, a lot of the small independent papers were coming out about the war profiteers and what the war was designed to, what it was about. It was actually to enrich the military. They didn't call it that, the military-industrial complex back then, but it was designed to do that. What happened later on in the 1920s, J.P. Morgan sent out agents to buy up the influential newspapers that really control the lesser media. Now, I'm not going to be controlled, but the problem is, if I'm not controlled, I'm going to be throttled down as much as possible. I know that's going to be the game. But I know it's not exactly YouTube doing this. It's because who really owns YouTube? You could say, oh, this one owns it, or this one's in charge of it, and she's the CEO, the lady's in charge of it. She probably isn't so bad, man. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know nothing about her, but I can tell you right now, she's going to have to answer to the money. I mean, she makes a lot of money too. I mean, that's another thing. Like Exxon could be broke, having a loss because the people on the top, the directors are making so much money. They're making a salary equivalent of at least $15,000 an hour, and I don't know why Exxon's losing. Well, we're losing money. Feel sorry for us. Yeah, right. Anyway, you know how this shit works, man. So, I'm pretty wise to a lot of stuff. So I just want to put this out that this guy, Chang Ma, whatever the hell his name is, he's a load of it. He's a load of it. And they're actually trying to. It's amazing how they're convincing many people that Donald Trump's policies towards China are wrong. He's not wrong. You got to remember, the only way, and actually this is one of the main things even with elitist investments, they invest in stuff. You never see on a balance sheet where most of their assets are cash moolah. I know a lot of people I put out the silver videos, and a lot of people go, what are you going to do, invest in fiat? Yeah, come on, man. Anybody that has a corporation or a company or whatever, most of their money isn't in cash. It's always in hard assets. And that's, maybe your elite don't invest in silver, fine. Silver's a very volatile investment. It could be very volatile. You can win like a son of a bitch on it, though, sometimes. That's the potential if you're patient. But it's not the only thing around. Real estate is actually the biggest investment of a lot of people. Even people that are currency manipulators. This guy was being accused of, yeah, you're a currency manipulator because you want to freaking keep your exports going to the United States. But, in the meantime, enjoy it and get hard, durable goods. Make sure you don't buy bull crap that's going to be thrown away inside of a freaking 6 months. That's junk. And, it's a two-edged sword because, you're helping their industry too. But, it's not helping the Chinese middle class that much. It's actually helping guys like this. Where do you think this guy made all this money? It's Chang Ma, whatever the hell it is. Hey, he made it off the backs of the freaking Chinese workers. Hey, you're really out there for the Chinese guys. He's a load of crap too. Now, I'm going to tell you, Trump, you could criticize him, and I could pull out criticism if I wanted to, because I know there's different things you can say about him. But he's one of the billionaires out there. At least he makes stuff. That's one reason I used to like to work for in construction. construction, at least you got a building out there that's going to be lasting you umpteen decades. And, whether you wheeled and dealed and you played all these games and all this kind of crap, at least you made something that's going to be durable, that's going to be useful for people and businesses. I personally, the ones I hate the most that are billionaires are these guys that are like, playing a game with the interest and the algorithms on the freaking stock market and all this kind of shit, and they know all the inside trading deals before they happen, right? And they make a lot of money that way. But Trump is actually highly legit now. The more I'm seeing, the more he's attacked, and these attacks are going to be stepped up exponentially this summer. And it's not just the deep state, it's like all these other billionaires too. And these other billionaires are bigger than he is. They are. But, despite that I'm just one individual, I guess there's always one way to shut me up. I mean, it's like, you can kill me. Maybe I'll kill you first. You got, maybe you'll try to drug me up with some of your freaking crazy meds or some shit. You'll say, just like they're trying to analyze Trump, saying that he's got some mental issues, and they're saying if they had their way, if the psychs had their way, they'd be jacking Trump up on all kinds of psych meds and turn him into a zombie. That's another control mechanism. That's another game. That's another strategy to shut people up. So anyway, but I'm pretty much aware of where these things are coming from, and I'm like a devil myself. I'm not limited by religion, faith in Jesus, or any of those parameters. I'm like a panther, man. Like a cat. So, stealth, cunning, and everything counts a lot. And I'm not going to do all political videos on here. This has been a little longer than I thought, because when I talk, I'm the type of guy, I can get up in front of 500 people or 5,000 people and talk right off the top of my hat. I can do that. I don't rehearse nothing when I put out a video. I never even know exactly where I'm going to go with a topic. But if I want to play like a little more corporate and formal, I can. Want to play working class? I can. Want to play Yankee Northern? I can. Want to play Southern? I can. I could play the game, and I could be a chameleon. And that is one reason I can fit in with these guys, but I fit in more with the people like Trump, because now I'm really kind of identifying Trump with more like the people I used to work for. A lot of people, sometimes they didn't think they were the best people in the world, but I think Trump is a good guy now. I really do. Not for the same reason most people do. And it's not because I'm coming around to it. I think most people that were on the bandwagon with Trump did not have the exposure to what people on the top are really like. They just took hook, line, and sinker what he said. But I'm realizing the more he's being attacked, the more legit he's proving that he really is. So, but we got a problem. We got a problem because the major media YouTube channels now, that's what's going on, which the money is controlling this. They're making the algorithms favor the large guys, except for independent producers like even PewDiePie, because they want to control what people are told, and like once they get that leading edge out there, others will follow. It's like a given. That's how people are. But I have never really been too much of a follower, and I've been more like a shrewd chameleon, like a cat, like a panther. So, and anyway, over and out. So that's all I got to say on this shit, because I've been a little longer than I thought. But anyway, just beware of some of the main talking points I said. That the trade imbalance with China was planned deliberately to dismantle and weaken and deindustrial the United States. It was not for what the reasons given initially were for. In other words, they were saying it was to export the jobs that don't require as much skilled labor, or maybe as much engineering prowess and design prowess. No. That was the scam reason, or the good reason they give you, the good sounding reason. The real reason was to bring down the United States. There's been a policy to bring down the United States and deindustrialize the United States, whereby all countries would be on a level playing field and the feudal lords would control all the serfs. Initially, China's middle class might go up somewhat, but they'll get pushed down again. And there's like a lot of games going on. And I can tell you one thing: this billionaire, he sure as hell didn't do any favors for any people that were in China that were working for him, because he wouldn't have got that kind of money. That's the deal. Over and out.